I adore Breath of Fire. There's something about it that just makes me feel at ease. What makes a game have this cozy campfire feel? Well, the music of course, the art style too, but number one, it's gotta be the characters. And Breath of Fire has a great cast of characters, which we're going to dissect and rank. That's right, it's time to rank all of the Breath of Fire 1 characters. Oh, and what's this? You thought there were only 8 party members? Turns out there's 11, because yes, those Windland soldiers, they count. As always, we're ranking on how good they are in battle, how important they are to the story, how cool their designs are, and really, how much I like them. And that's what really matters here. I'm not an expert, I'm just a guy who loves these games. So if you disagree with me, you're probably right. So, let's get it started. Ryu is our protagonist. He's from the Light Clan and hails from the town of Drogen. It may shock you to learn that he gains the ability to transform into a dragon, and that's what really sets him apart from most of the other characters in this game. Once in these dragon forms, Ryu's damage output skyrockets, taking him from a great but somewhat boring character to an amazing, yet boring character. As the game progresses, each dragon you unlock increases Ryu's strength until we unlock his final forms, the easy to find Rudra form, which is strong on its own, and the godlike form of Angie, which is pretty much unstoppable. Once in the Angie form, Ryu will do max damage and have max health. The only downside to Angie is that it requires all your characters to be part of the transformation, which can make battles a little boring, par for the course with Ryu. But wait, there's more. In addition to his dragon forms, and his above average attack and defense, he can also equip boomerangs, a weapon that only he can use, which allows him to attack all the enemies at once on the screen. Ryu, like most of the characters, has a field ability. Field abilities are skills you can use outside of battle and can give characters a bit more flavor. Ryu can fish, which is fine. Fishing is required to unlock endgame items and content, but like Ryu, it's a little boring. There's no minigame, you just cast and wait to see what you found. Ryu also doesn't have much of a personality other than the determined protagonist, and as much as I'd like to rag on him for that, it's more of a sign of the time when this game was made than anything else. And his sprite, like all the sprites, oozes personality. Ryu may be a bit of a boring character, but he gets the job done. He's always one of your best characters, and his dragon forms make him a significant cut above the other characters, especially his last two, and those forms are going to push him into the legendary tier. Nina is the princess of Windland and our party's white mage, and she isn't some damsel in distress as her class would have you believe. With her father poisoned and dying, she takes it upon herself to track down the foe who poisoned him and demand the cure. While this does lead to us needing to save her, it certainly shows that she's got fight in her, which continues to show up later in the game with her conversations with Blue. In battle, Nina has one job, and one job only, and that's to keep your characters healthy, and she excels at this. With an AP pool that seems to never run dry, she can throw out spells when required, and even sneak in a buff here or there. Just don't ask her to attack or take hits. Nina, unlike healers in other games, can't be replaced with items, since in Breath of Fire, healing magic has priority in turn order, so it's always the first action in battle, whereas items can rely on the character's agility, and that can make all the difference in the world when it comes to keeping someone alive. On the surface, it would appear that Nina has no field ability, but that's because it's unlocked towards the end of the game. Nina can transform into a bird? A large bird? I'm not too sure how big the bird is, but it can carry the whole party and that's all that matters. An extremely useful ability that loses a bit of its luster when we have the warp spell, which Nina knows by the way, which lets us travel between towns quickly. Nina is an invaluable member of the team, and once you recruit her, she won't be leaving your party, especially when you have a boss fight. She's gonna sit in great tier, because while she's essential, she never really gets to that point where she's overpowering. Now let's talk about those Windland soldiers. 2 Windland soldiers join your party to escort Nina to confront the wizard who has poisoned the king. You control them, they level up, they count as party members, dammit. As units, they're perfectly adequate. Nothing more. They aren't as strong as Ryu, but they aren't far behind him at this point in the game since all he can do is attack and defend as well. When the party confronts the wizard, Soldier 1 stays behind to protect Nina and to give time for Soldier 2 to escape. Soldier 1 knows he's gonna die, but he stays to protect Nina, and that's gonna give him a true hero's death. It's just gonna land him in fine territory, because these guys are just filler units after all. While Soldier 1 distracts the wizard, Soldier 2 escapes to tell Windland the princess's fate. After making the long flight home, he informs the guards and promptly slumps to his death. Is this a more heroic death than Soldier 1? It's debatable. Soldier 1 knew he was facing certain death, whereas Soldier 2 had a chance for life, but fought to exhaustion for the crown. I think this puts him slightly ahead of Soldier 1, but barely, and we're still just going to have him in the fine territory as well. Soldier 3 joins us to escort Ryu in his battle with the wizard. Soldier 3 has a majestic beard and looks to be the strongest soldier, but his stats are actually worse than the other two. He escorts Ryu to Karma Tower to confront the wizard, showing off magnificent flying skill as he eludes the dragons trying to stop him, but that's about all he does. We might want to rank him higher than the other two due to his rank, and that he makes it alive, but I just can't. Soldier 1 and Soldier 2 are heroes, and Soldier 3 might be. I mean, he's an old warrior, he might have already had his moments of greatness, but in this story, he just doesn't measure up to the other two. He's just gonna go in fine and rank behind the other two birdmen. Bo is my favorite character in this game, and he probably has the least amount of story. Bo is a member of the Forest clan who are basically wolf people. After being forced from their homes by the Dark Dragons, they settled a new town on a nearby river, only to continue to be harassed by the Dark Dragons. He saves Ryu and Nina after they were captured in a trap set by one of the Dark Dragon generals, masquerading as the town's elder. Afterwards, he joins up since they have the same goals, and that's about it. As a character, Bo is sort of a jack of all trades, possessing a strong attack from the back row, and he starts with a decent selection of both offensive and defensive spells, and doesn't learn any more. It's like the game sort of forgets that he exists, and that's his biggest problem. While he starts off strong, he just ends up being left behind as the other characters surpass him, since they have an area of focus, and Bo doesn't. Bo has a pretty cool field ability. He can hunt wildlife that appears on screen by shooting his arrow at them, and he can walk through previously unpassable forests. But just like in battle, another option comes along that does this better later. He starts off as a strong, important, cool-looking character that the game just forgets about. We are putting him in good tier, but even that feels like it might be too high for how little importance he actually has. His best days are behind him. Karn's got a real Jekyll and Hyde thing going on. We first discover Karn in the prison cells of Arya after we get caught and locked in there. Not sure how Karn got caught, but whatever. We rouse him from his sleep, and he effortlessly picks the lock for us, allowing us to escape and allowing him to go back to bed. In a shocking twist of events, we end up needing a skilled lockpick to save the daughter of a rich man in Arya, who locked herself in a safe. After some back and forth, we find Karn hunting for thieves' tools in the same place we are. And surprise, there are no tools. He always had the knowledge and power of being a great thief within him. By himself, Karn is the standard thief unit. Mediocre attack, okay defense, but hey, at least he moves first. On the map, he can open locked doors and spot traps. But what really makes Karn a cut above the rest are his super forms. Karn is able to fuse with other characters, Bo, Ox, and Gobi, to create a super unit. There are 4 of these forms in the game, and 3 of them are extremely useful. These forms offer a significant attack and HP boost. They pretty much make him a god unit, and it gives the other, less fortunate units something to do. The other great thing about these forms is that they're useful all the time. Ryu's dragon forms really only get used in boss fights, but Karn's forms can be active all the time. But there is a slight catch, and that catch is going to cause Karn to be ranked behind Ryu. These forms are rather hard to find. Sure, you might locate the first 2, but the 3rd and 4th ones are out of the way, and are harder to find than Ryu's ultimate dragon forms, and probably a little weaker. I've struggled on where to put Karn, bounced back and forth between legendary and great, but I think I'm going to settle on legendary. If only there was like an almost legendary tier. You know what? There is now. That works for me. Karn, you're almost legendary. Gobi is a scam artist, or merchant we first meet in Arya, where he's set up as a normal merchant, but when the option presents itself to exploit the party when they need another ship, he jumps at the chance. And when that ship sinks, he does it again when the party is stranded on an island. See, one of Gobi's few special abilities is that he can breathe underwater, and eventually he can turn into a big fish, and that allows the party to traverse the underwater areas unencumbered. But to start, he doesn't have that ability because he's lost his license, since even his own people hate him. So he'll have to walk alone, and likely die, because Gobi is terrible. Long story short, Gobi eventually redeems himself with his tribe, and regains his license, but that doesn't turn him into a worthwhile unit. He's still pretty weak, only really usable in water, and you really don't need to be underwater at all. Is there anything Gobi does good? Well, you can set up shop with him in Tunland and Prima in an attempt to scam others out of money and rare weapons. It's actually pretty fun. But at the end of the day, Gobi is just going to end up as the glue in most of Karn's forms, and that's his best place. I'm sorry, Gobi. I didn't want to do this, but you're going in the trash, and I kinda feel bad, but that's also kinda where you belong. You're never gonna get your money from the party. Everything that you need to know about Ox is in his name. He's strong, he's slow, he carries a big hammer, and his field abilities include pushing heavy boxes and punching things very hard until they break. His clan, like pretty much everyone else, is at war with the Dark Dragons. We meet Ox after the Dark Dragons sink the ship that was carrying him across the sea. With death literally over his shoulder, the party saves him and learns all the men of his clan have been imprisoned in order to build a weapon. With the help of a large bird and its eggs, Ox and the group are able to liberate his clan. Ox holds his own in battle. He's not the best character we can use, but he never drags the party down when he joins the fight. Unfortunately, he doesn't excel in the way many of the other party members do. If he had some method of ensuring enemies targeted him, he could make an adequate tank, but that's not something he or anyone else really has available to them. He and Bo are real close. Bo comes on strong but falls pretty quickly, while Axe stays competent throughout the game. He could even be used in the endgame party if you really wanted to. In the end though, both Ox and Bo get gobbled up by Karn's transformations. He's going to join Bo in good, and I think Bo's peak and early game usefulness is going to put him ahead of Ox, but really either way could be fine. Blue enters the game as the legendary sorcerer who fought alongside the Light Dragon clan 1,000 years ago. It's a lot to live up to, and she's a little underwhelming at first. But after she gets a few levels and remembers some spells, she soon becomes unstoppable. Blue is the prototypical black mage who has tons of devastating spells, but a few things push her over the top. First, she levels extremely fast compared to your normal members. She joins around the same level as Ryu, but will quickly jump ahead. It's not uncommon for her to be 10 levels ahead of the party, and this leads to thing number 2. She gains a large amount of HP and AP with each level, leading her to not only have the most AP of any character, but also the most HP of any character, so she can take a hit and not be phased. Third, her Snake Lady design is very cool, and adding blue hair to it is a nice solid touch. Her character routinely brings the jokes and adds much needed character moments to the game, whether it's bickering with Nina, knowing what needs to be done in certain situations, or really just being above it all. Next, her Bolt X spell does 400 damage for 30 AP, and with her AP pool at the end of the game, that's almost an unlimited source of power. And lastly, she doesn't need any tinkering or secret abilities to be great. She just is. And this is why I considered putting her number 1. Ryu and Karn both require finding secrets and hidden items. Blue doesn't need any of that nonsense. She just needs levels, and at the end of the game, her damage exceeds Karn's. This is a struggle, but I think she's going behind Ryu and in Legendary, so that puts her above Karn. It's only by the closest of margins, but I think Blue's personality and the fact that she does all of this on her own is going to put her over the top. Again, it's real close. I'm not quite sure why Mogu is even in the game. He doesn't really fill a role or a story purpose. Yes, I know the mole people are semi-important at the end of the game, but it still feels like he's just here because the game needed an 8th character. We find Mogu trapped in his dream, and we need to help him find his courage before we can defeat the demon who trapped him. Once free, he joins our battle against the Dark Dragons. Mogu isn't completely useless in battle, but he doesn't excel in any area enough to become a regular. He has decent attacks, but that's overshadowed by his mediocre HP pool that keeps him from being useful in any boss fight. He's really only useful for grinding and use in random battles, since he will be doing more damage than Nina. Being a mole, his field ability is Dig, which allows him to dig into underground passages at various points on the map. Since he joins too late, even this feels tacked on to me. Mogu isn't a terrible unit, he's just not very useful. Things might be better for him if he joined earlier, but by the time he comes, your party is pretty much set. He's just a fine unit, and that's where we're gonna put him, though he will be ahead of all of the other characters in fine. Thus ends our Breath of Fire character tier list, and I had a lot of fun putting this one together and replaying the game. Just to recap, we've got Ryu in blue in Legendary, Karn is in almost Legendary, Nina is sitting alone in Great, Bo placing just above Ox in the good tier, Mogu, Soldier 2, Soldier 1, Soldier 3 are doing just fine, and Gobi is sitting alone in the trash. If you agree or disagree with my list, leave a comment. I always find out new and interesting things from my comments on the games that I talk about. Also, if you've got some other games you'd like me to take a look at, I'm open for suggestions. I feel like I've got a huge backlog to work through. As always, thank you for joining me on this journey. Please like if you feel like I've earned it, and drop a subscribe if you'd like to see more. Until we meet again, adios.